Welcome to another episode of the Keep Making Podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Caitlin Martinson. Did I get your last name right?
Yeah, you did. Good job.
I only know you as Cat or Quiet Crow Dice. For the longest time, that's all I knew.
Yeah, that's what most people call me, is Cat. Professionally, I go by Cat. Most people know me as Cat. My family.
So wait, did I give a secret away by saying saying your full name? Okay, good.
No,
good.
my email for my business is Caitlin Martinson. So
okay,
it's not like you're giving any secrets away.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't
Most people
crossing
think
any
it's
lines.
probably Catlin.
Oh, I have my name is confusing for people too. They can't say Caitlin. Anyways, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm super excited to actually have a conversation with you that's longer than 5 minutes. We've had a lot of back and forth over the last since I started this job, really. The cool thing about our working relationship is you are featured on our new Amazing Clearcast Plus boxes. So your dice are actually all over the United States, in Michael's and Hobby Lobbies, and it's really awesome. We've gotten to partner with you to make those, and then in addition, you just are really good at your craft. So it was obvious when we started working together. We were like, ooh, wait a minute, we need to use these somewhere. And when we were launching that product, we were like, aha, so this is perfect. But that's how we know you. But I'd really like you to tell the audience of this podcast how you got started in making dice in general, and why dice of all the things on the planet.
So I, on a whim, I started playing D&D about 5 years ago, with a bunch of my really close friends.
D&D is. It is Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. I forget that people don't know the acronym or aren't familiar with it. Yeah, which I understand, because once upon a time D&D was like that thing that you played in the basement with your friends and didn't tell anyone about it because it was really nerdy, and now it's cool to be like a geek. And geeks will take over the world someday. So but on a whim, started playing Dungeons and Dragons about 5 years ago with some of my friends who live all over the country. So we were playing it via Discord, and one day I was just like, middle of winter, Wisconsin winters are pretty rough, the big sad, as I like to call it.
Oh, we live in Michigan. We are familiar with the big sad.
I was like, I really need to make something. And at first I was like, well, what can I make? And I was like, maybe I'll make rolling trays, which is what you roll the dice in. Usually they have leather felt on the bottom. And I was like, I'm not good at working with wood. I can use a screwdriver and a drill. Saws really scare me. So on a whim, I was like, well, I've kind of once or twice played around with resin. I kind of want to make dice. And at the time, there was really not a ton of information on how to do it out there. This was about 2.5 years ago when I first started dabbling in it. And so there were a couple makers on YouTube who had videos on how to make molds, which is a lot. It's labor intensive and it's very finicky. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so in over my head. But I was so excited. I couldn't sleep the night that I decided I was going to do this. I said to my then boyfriend at the time, I was like, I want to make dice. I'm going to go get some stuff tomorrow to make dice. And we're living in a studio apartment, keep in mind. So I go to Michael's and I buy your guys' silicone that's pink. And I can't remember what it's called.
You bought some amazing mold rubbers.
Okay.
That's what we sell at Michael's.
Yes. And the Amazing Clearcast, because it was what was recommended. Everyone's like, either use this or use the Amazing Clearcast. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I bought some of that. I bought the Amazing Mold Rubber, and I just very rudimentary tried to make a mold, and it was a disaster. And that's when I started researching, platinum cure versus tin cure and all this stuff and how it interacts with epoxy. I never used resin to that degree. I'd never made a mold before. And so it took me a year to
really
do and make a usable set. Yeah. It was
a year.
A struggle.
That's I'm very impressed that you stuck that out, because from what I know about you, though, you're kind of a perfectionist. Like from like when like if it is not exactly how you had it in your mind, nope, doing something else.
No.
So I'm
And
so happy
with
you took it that time to do that.
with my art especially, I'm also kind of one of those people who, if I don't get it right the first time, I get very frustrated with it. Like I just want to be good at it right now. So actually, I think my husband was really impressed that I have stuck with it as long as I have. I think he's like, when is she gonna get bored of this? But
Mm-hmm.
not yet. It hasn't happened yet. It's like little teeny tiny things of magic every single day. So I don't see myself getting tired of it anytime soon. But yeah, I just on a whim. And now it's become like this amazing, huge community of makers, lifting up makers, and the tabletop role playing game community has really grown a lot. I think
Mm-hmm.
especially with COVID and with the quarantining and insular, like I think people are looking for that escapism that some people find in video games, some people find in books, some people find in tabletop games. So it's
I
been really
couldn't
cool
agree
to
more.
see that grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're 100% right. And you said it perfectly. These are like little things of magic every single time that you make them. And like, I think yeah, you said it. So, and I fully agree when it comes to your dice. Every time I've seen a photo of your dice, I'm like, is this just magic? Just this like tiny little moment of magic on like, for me, it's my Instagram feed. I'm like, oh yes. Oh, of course it's Quiet Crow again. Like, duh. Like, so
Yep.
when it comes to that year process, what made you stick it out that long? And then in addition, what have you learned along the way? Because when you started, there wasn't like this necessarily large community. COVID obviously was not a thing. There wasn't a community of people that like wanted to engage with what you were making or curious about it as much. There obviously was probably some, but what did you start with when you're like preconceived of like, I'm going to make dice? What's this going to be like to what you are like now when it comes to dice? Because I bet you're two different people on some level.
Definitely. I think when I first started out, I was like, I'm going to make dice for all my friends. It's going to be the super cool thing that they can use that like I made for them. And once I started getting into it, there's this really interesting, and I've tried to figure this out. And I think a lot of resin artists have. Humans seem to be fascinated with suspending objects in time. And by in time, I mean suspending things in resin because it's like manipulating gravity and making, little bits of magic. And I think what's kept me going through all this is there is a never ending capability that you have to be creative with this medium. I think you can put basically anything in it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you can take the most abstract or the most literal subject matter and create from that. A lot of the people that commission me will give me like 2 photos and they're like, I want it to feel like this, or I want it to look like this. And that's all I need because the medium itself is so flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, just like literally, I think I wrote this in the questionnaire that you guys emailed me. It is
Mm-hmm.
literally like every time I unmold,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a design that I've made 100 times over, every single time that I take it out of the mold, it is like unwrapping a present. And everyone loves unwrapping presents.
Yes, if you don't, something's wrong with you. You're
Yeah,
probably a
so
murderer.
it's like such a good feeling to be making something, to be creative, and then to unwrap the present for yourself. And I think that's really what kept me going, like through every mistake I made, through every experiment that turned out horrible, to every experiment that was amazing. I really think it was just like the process itself is gratifying enough to where even if the result isn't exactly what I wanted it to be, it doesn't matter. It was still fun the entire way. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what kept me going. And I've definitely become more patient. You can't really force resin to behave the way that you want it to.
It's gonna do what it wants.
And exactly. And I'm people who know me are probably surprised that I use a resin that has like a 24-hour demold because they're like, are you okay? You're the most impatient person I know. I'm like instant gratification. But I tried all the other ones and it wasn't vibing. We weren't vibing. And I think when the ACC Plus came out, that was just like icing on the cake. It like
Awesome.
took it to that level that I was looking for. Yeah.
That's so cool to hear. So when it comes to where you're at now, obviously you have a larger community, like you were mentioning the makers. There are definitely more dice makers, and I think some of our woodworking friends that have known Alumilite for a long time and seen our social media, like they definitely have made fun of us when it comes to like, oh, we noticed when you started realizing people made dice, because we were just like, what is this world? Because it was so fascinating and cool to see, and like all the people that were part of that community, everybody was extremely friendly and very open,
Mhm.
and like I'd say even more so than other like pockets of makers out there. It seems like everybody lifts each other up pretty like, and that's it. And like, and if you're like one of those people that's like, oh, my stuff is better, or I make cooler things, you like, that doesn't seem to fly at all in this community. Can you
No.
elaborate on that a little bit? Because I
Yes.
always found that fascinating.
This is like one of my favorite topics to talk about because as I've gained experience, I like to be able to help people who are new. I don't want them to spend the amount of money I did, number one. I don't want them to have to make all the mistakes I did. And also, I think the RPG community as a whole, we are used to being a community. Your games are better when you have people helping you or
Mhm.
role playing with you, especially Dungeons and Dragons. Like the creativity is inherent in the community. And so when dice making really took off, and I won't claim to have been at like ground zero, like I
Mhm.
didn't get
Mhm.
in like when it first started, but there are internet communities and there are groups of makers who like genuinely, if someone is making better stuff than you're genuinely happy for them because it's bettering the community as a whole. And I think
Mhm.
we're constantly pushing ourselves to like
Mhm.
find our niche. And it's like really any other type of art form where like I work a lot with florals. I did not see myself ever working a lot with florals, but when I started playing with that, that kind of became like my comfort zone.
Mhm.
And there are some people who do like they do acrylic paint and resin and just are doing these amazing things. And so everyone has like their signature look. And I think that's what makes it amazing is they're like, we have the signature look, but I'll tell you exactly how I make my dice. Because if you like me, you're going to want some of my dice. And if you like that person, you're also going to want some of theirs because
Yeah.
dice collectors are goblins and they're going to want all the things. So there's not inherently like a toxic competitiveness. We're just constantly trying to like one up each other in
Mm,
like, you did that and you weren't so sure about it. Can I try that? And someone's like, hell yeah, do it. You do it. Let me see if you can do it better than me. It's just
yeah.
the nature of the game in
Mhm.
general. And I also think that we try and keep it open because there's so much toxicity in the world in general that this is how people escape.
Mm,
And this is their, for lack of a better term, this is their happy place. And if we turn it into a toxic place, there's no point. The
yeah.
community will just eat itself. And
Right.
so it's just been really refreshing to be a part of something as someone who went to school for art and was in like the art scene, and as someone who works for a career that is very ego driven. It's so refreshing to come home at the end of the day and work with people who are like, I'll tell you exactly how you need to do that. Do
Mm,
you have a question? I'm more than happy to spend an hour out of my night with my free time to help you do it. It's just, it is the community. And
that's so
that's
awesome.
just, yeah.
It's like super awesome. I mean, like, I think that's also why we connected true as well, because at the end of the day, that's kind of why Alumilite exists. It's to help people make what they want to make at the end of the day. And for you, it and the community of dice makers in general, it just seems such like a natural fit of just like, oh, hey, how are you? Can we just hang out together? Because we all like the same
Mm-hmm.
things on some
Yeah.
level. But beyond that, the human side of what you talked about, like it being a safe place just in general for people just to create and then to connect and even play. All those activities are like built into us, like since the time we were
Yep.
very tiny. And it sounds
Yep.
like maybe And going back to our my original question of like, who were you before you started and after? It seems like you kind of got to reconnect a little bit with some like childlike wonder without having to worry about somebody's ego walking in the room and knocking everything over, or being a perfectionist in something, because the reality is like, you know, you're going to constantly push yourself because someone else is also pushing themselves, but it's playful and not spiteful, which is really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
And I think inherently too, when a lot of people that are dice makers are making them as a hobby, they're not doing it as like an alternate source of income. And I went into it never in my wildest dreams thinking that anyone would buy my dice, and I didn't really expect to sell my dice. And so, you know, I don't want to sully it for anyone who's doing it as a hobby either. So if you're doing it as a hobby, you have a larger stake in this because you're spending your hard-earned money and your time on something that you may not profit off of, but you genuinely enjoy it. So it's just like, there's no, you know, we try not to gatekeep, and we try to, you know, lift each other up and, you know, just make it happy, because sometimes art can be so pretentious. And
oh my goodness. I come from the film world, so
you know.
I know exactly what you speak of. There's blessings and curses to everything, but you know, generally when it comes to being a snob, come on, like nobody, no, ain't nobody got time for that. Anyways, what is something that you wish you would have known when you first got into dice making in general, that if someone that is currently getting into it and like watches this podcast, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to spend the bulk of their hard-earned money investing in a pressure pot. And a lot of people ask me why that's what I suggest. And it's because it takes a huge everything. You're not worrying about bubbles. You're not worrying about your molds being ruined. And silicone is freaking expensive. So like, come on, don't waste it. And so I think, and when I first got a pressure pot, I was terrified of it. I was absolutely terrified of it. And my dad had to help me set it up. And my dad's been a mechanic his entire life. And now he builds like really complicated scientific instruments and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I know people who use these who make pen blanks and stuff like that. Like he was even like, I know what a pressure pot is. And so that would be my one thing that I tell people is, if you can, even if it's like a converted Harbor Freight thing, do it, because you'll save yourself so much headache. And it's like, again, going back to the instant gratification, you just know that no matter if you don't like the colors or the inclusions that you put in, your dice are still going to come out and they're going to look great, you know,
right?
Regardless.
No bubbles with that pressure pot.
No bubbles. And
sorry, keep going.
No, you're good.
I was going to say, a lot of makers don't realize that how powerful a pressure pot can be in conjunction with resin or epoxy or any resin in general. Like it is a no-brainer, and we encourage a lot of people, especially no matter the product that they're using of ours, if you can use a pressure pot with it, do it, because it's gonna make your project better overall, and then your time and your money doesn't go to waste because of bubbles. Like it's a natural part of the medium. Obviously we try and formulate things to be as bubble free as possible, but if you put anything in that resin, you're gonna have bubbles. Like that's just how that works.
Exactly.
It's the second you put anything in there. So
there are dice makers out there who do not use pressure pots, and they're working miracles, and I don't know how they do it. Like I don't know how they do it. I am not one of those people. I am not talented enough to be one of those people. So I always tell people, get a pressure pot and then learn some patience. Those are my two big things. And even if you think you're a patient person, your first dice pour, you're going to be like waiting up at night. Like, I can't wait to like look in those molds. I can't wait to see it. You know, those are my
Have you ever done it too soon? Have you, like, because of impatience, just like it like tacky, or it's just not even remotely
when I was first starting out, all the time I'd be like, oh, it's been like 6 hours, this is fine, and then like poke the top of the mold and I'd be like, it's still liquid. Oops. Yeah, but now I've gotten way better, and my workflow is, my workshop is in my dad's garage. So at the time I was traveling like about 5 miles between my apartment in my parents' house. So it was like I left at night and then would go back after work the next day. So I couldn't
That's
I
good.
couldn't peak early. Yeah. So
Cool. So, when it comes to setup, do you have? So, it looks like you've just moved into a new home. Looks like you're setting up. Are you going to have your own workshop? How is it now? Because like you've transitioned also from like it just being a hobby. People do buy your dice. I know that, and you don't make like a ton of dice. It's more commission based. It seems like, and then like you might create like a couple sets and put them for sale. But you're not like churning out a bunch of dice. Not
cranking them out.
Yeah.
No, I'm too much of a perfectionist for that. So we just bought a house in Stoughton, which is kind of like southeast of Madison. And we have a really nice semi-finished basement. And for the first time since I started this, my workshop will be in the same place I reside, which is awesome for my workflow and my general creativity. So yeah, my brain is spinning because I still haven't moved all of my stuff over, and it's amazing what you accumulate as you like start to grow this. And I'm just like, I have like 3 Tupperware or like Rubbermaid 3-drawer stacks full of like pressed flowers that I bought or pressed myself. And I'm like,
really?
I have to move all of those. It's
That's
just
a lot
it's
of flowers.
Yeah, I mean, I go through a lot of them. So but I'm excited to have it here, and my husband's actually really excited too. He kind of wants to be a part of it now.
Oh, that's so fun.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's way more left-brained than I am. So it's exciting to see him want to get involved in it. And he plays Dungeons and Dragons too. We have a local group that is now over Zoom, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But it's really exciting to have it be in my home. So I feel like everything's kind of come full circle now.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Well, I have nothing but incredible things to say about you. I wanted to, as we get close to wrapping up here, what I wanted to do is give you a chance to talk about maybe some projects that you're working on that you're really excited about, things that you have coming up that you want people to know, any type of plug in general. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Hot Ones. He always is like, what do you got to tell the audience? And he's like, look at that camera, that camera, that camera. I love that part of the show.
Yeah.
This is that time for you. If there's something that you'd like to share, and like tell everybody your handle, where they can find you, like all that kind of stuff. And then you get a chance to ask me a question. You can ask me specifically, or Alumilite, the company as a whole, anything you'd like, because obviously I've been pestering you with questions, and it's only fair that I at least give you one. So
everyone can find me. I'm primarily most active on Instagram is where I try and be, because it's the one thing that I kind of know how to use. At Quiet Crow. I think it's Quiet Crow. I don't think it's Quiet Crow Dice.
Now, in my mind,
Instagram.
I know in my mind, I'm like, is it Quiet Crow? I thought it was Quiet Crow Dice. Am I wrong?
Hold on.
Look at this book. Quiet Crow Dice. It's Quiet Dice. That's amazing. Great job plugging your Instagram.
I'm doing great. Yeah.
We'll make sure and put it up on the screen for everybody.
Perfect. What was the main question besides plugging how awesome I am? Oh, what am I working on right now? Really, really exciting. So Small Business Saturday, which this will probably come out after Small Business Saturday, gearing up for just like a sort of little sale for Small Business Saturday. Kind of like the anti-Black Friday movement for like a small people, but I still do Black Friday stuff. It's fine. And then
your secret is safe. Oh wait, this is a podcast.
Yes. Right. Oh no.
Yeah.
And then currently I am finishing up the dice collection that I based off of like my all-time favorite childhood trilogy, which is the Abhorsen trilogy by Garth Nix. I have 2 sets left to design, and then I'm doing some like limited edition stuff, some sets of D20s and all that. So it's just, that's kind of what I've been chugging along at. And then we'll move into like wintertime stuff, and the dice community likes to challenge each other with like monthly themes and stuff like that. So we'll see what they come up with for December and all that. So yeah, just chugging along, trying to stay positive and happy during COVID.
Well, good luck in that endeavor. The last one that you
thanks.
mentioned, I think everybody, good luck in that endeavor in general.
Yeah.
That's so fun. You got a lot of fun things that are coming up, and I'm super pumped for
Yeah.
you and your husband to be working on some projects together. And you guys can do you could create a husband and wife D&D set they'll be very unique. Don't do it, or you could go like full cheese mode just to like really mess with your friends or something. Like do the Mr. and Mrs. in there, like, and really just like stick it in there.
So funny is someone asked me, so we had a COVID wedding. We had a teeny tiny wedding. And someone asked me, they're like, oh, so you're going to like put part of your dress or part of your flowers? And I'm like, well, my dress was a skirt that I bought online and I didn't have a bouquet. So I don't think I'm doing any wedding dice.
That checks out.
But that is a thing. There are people out there who will send, it blows my mind that will send like these very important bits of their life to be suspended in resin and made into playable art pieces. Like it's so cool.
It's very cool. It's very, very cool. Well, if you got any questions, also, by the way, you don't have to ask a question if you don't want to, but do you have any question for me that you'd like answered in general or for Alumilite?
I think if I don't ask this question, the dice community would be very disappointed in me, especially those who are making master dice on 3D printers. So is the Alumilite team working on a type of silicone that plays nice with the SLA resin?
That is a wonderful question that I cannot answer right now. These are the good. I'm really glad that you're asking this question. We do need a silicone that plays well with the SLA resin in general. We absolutely can. And if the dice community would like to start sending me emails and questions about this outside of Quiet Crow, that would be a good thing, because how the feedback thing works is that at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier for Alumilite, we do want to help people make what they want to make. And if they need specific things to continue to make that's in like the Alumilite wheelhouse, or it's like, oh, this should be in our wheelhouse from a product standpoint. That's why we released the epoxies that we recently released. All of those we've been getting asked for years. We're like, if you haven't noticed, like getting the engine like really going now.
Yep. Yeah.
So we're going faster with a lot of oh, here's the feedback loop of our customers really need X. How long can we develop this and get it out into the marketplace? 3 months. Sometimes it's like as quick as that. So we're like, oh, okay. If the need is big enough, it can be faster. So yeah, is that a good yes, no answer to your question?
That's perfect. I think, it's so funny to see this from like the maker side of things, as everyone's trying to figure out different ways to cure this SLA resin. And, as like basement 3D printing becomes more popular, people are gonna, be like, I want to 3D print this thing that I designed in Blender, and then I want to mass produce it. I want to make molds of it. And the SLA resin doesn't always play nice with the platinum cure. So it's kind of like,
we do have the tin-based stuff, but I don't know how well that plays with the tin-based off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And we have different shore hardnesses for those.
Yeah. But it was a big thing when I was doing my master's.
Okay. So that's a really good, I mean, the reality, I know, so the advantage of Alumilite is we have a parent company called Polytech, and they have every kind of silicone under the sun. So if we don't have the solution, we can find the solution. And if they don't have the solution, we have our own chemists. So like we can actually make the solution. But yeah, this is a good one. And I literally wrote it down on my handy dandy notebook. So it'll be something that I will bring up to the powers that be and be like, hey, where's our silicone for this need? And they'll be like, oh, that's right. So anyways, any other questions in general? If not, I think this has been a fantastic conversation per usual, Kat. It's so fun to talk to you in general and to see what you're up to. I'm pumped for you, and congratulations on being married, new house, new workshop. You got a lot of exciting stuff going on. You got a lot of reasons to be happy despite a global
pandemic. Yeah, no, it's good. And I look forward to being able to cross state lines and come play with you guys in the workshop. we had just started those conversations, and then COVID popped off. So
Yep.
down the road, you know,
Someday.
you guys are only across the pond from me. So
I know. Someday we will make it happen. You'll come in. We'll do an entire video series just on dice with you. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool.
I really look forward to it.
Me too. I think everybody in our workshop looks forward to those days too. It's like, oh yeah. Remember people? Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Oh, people. Oh, we used to have guests.
Yeah, we used to have people come in here. What? Anyways, okay, cool. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and end this podcast. Everybody, thanks for listening. Go follow Quiet Crow Dice on Instagram and any other spots that she is. It is Quiet Crow Dice. It's not Quiet Crow. You will find her sometimes in Quiet Crow.